Thank you, Asana, and for Bيtna Center for organizing this event, and for the participants and attendees here and online. It's actually painful for us, I believe, as Syrians, to expect that we need to have experience in response to chemical attacks. A lot of the civil defense activities were reacting to things that we never imagined we will be doing or we have to do, in terms of the collective punishment, the besiegement, the barrel bombs, the suicide drones recently, and of course the chemical attacks. We didn't have experience when it started, we admit that, and we didn't follow the best protocols because there were no protocols ready to use on how to respond to chemical attacks by humanitarian workers. Definitely something weird that we had to address. And it was very risky and challenging experience because in the beginning we didn't know how to do, we had to learn in practice while we do the job. Many of our rescue workers got injured themselves, their families, their colleagues. We had big difficulties due not only lack of training, but also lack of equipment. You responded and you didn't know what you are responding to, what kind of weapon, what kind of gas. Should you advise the civilians to go up the building or to go down to the basement? Gradually, we acquired experience and we were progressing. And we were not happy that we had to go through this exercise. We were not happy that we had to keep asking for equipment and training because we expected that this would happen again, while it should never happen. We trained more and more hazmat response teams. We also shared experience with other local groups. We enhanced collaboration and coordination system in response to chemical attacks with the hospitals, the other medical facilities. And we progressed not only to respond and evacuate the victims, but also to collect the samples, which added additional responsibility on the responders themselves. We believe the Syrian experience in response to chemical attacks has been globally unique, as a lot of the other examples we had to deliver we Syrians during this tragedy. However, we trust that we will achieve justice one day, and there are progressive steps on this track. We have been involved in many investigations as White Helmets and as the other amazing civil society partners and actors from different angles, from different scenes. And the call for the establishment of the exceptional tribunal comes as a second phase in our joint collaboration as CSOs to hopefully finally have an avenue to hold the perpetrators accountable from all sides and deliver justice to victims from all sides.
Thank you very much, Farouk. If I may do a quick follow-up. Initially, the White Helmets were first responders to a lot of those attacks, especially happening in the northwest of Syria. But then they moved into documentation and also are now contributing into the efforts of accountability, as mentioned. Why?
We admit it wasn't planned. There was no such strategic plan, nor a conspiracy behind the Syrian revolution. that we plan to do this and this and reach this stage at this time. We responded to the tragedy, and in the later stage, we started receiving requests and inquiries from human rights organizations, from the OPCW, from others, asking about what we've seen, what we have. Why? Because the first responders are the first witnesses. And because by time we acquired the protective gear to protect ourselves while responding to the chemical attacks, and to collect samples and test them to understand what gas was used, so what kind of treatment and what kind of procedure we should follow. So that put us in a unique position, which we did not ask for and we did not plan to be in. As we responded for more than 60 chemical attacks in Syria, across the Syrian territory. It started in Douma and Damascus countryside, in Damascus, in suburbs, in Hama countryside, in Aleppo, and including, of course, all countryside of Idlib. And we had to honor our commitment to save lives. This is the commitment of the white helmets. What would you do to save more lives? And we realized that saving more lives cannot be achieved only by rescuing the direct victims to a hospital if we don't establish a deterrence to prevent these chemical attacks from happening again. So we had our moral responsibility towards the victims to hold the perpetrators accountable and prevent them from killing more victims. We had our commitment to our own volunteers and our own teams. Hundreds of the White Helmets volunteers were injured by the chemical gas, by the chemical attacks themselves. We believe our commitment towards the world, because chemical weapons now present an increasing global threat. The world is less safe from the chemical threats after what happened in Syria, because the perpetrators felt emboldened. And now you see unbelievable reports about the use by the Russians of the chemical weapons in Ukraine. Why? Because there were no consequences for using them in Syria. So we had to step forward. We had to improve our capacity in documenting what happened, providing the samples, the testimonies, analyzing the evidence, triangulating the evidence. It's not only the samples which we collect, it's also the footage from the GoPro cameras, the data from the mining and UXO teams, the incident reports of the operations teams, and it's a lengthy work. It takes a lot of time, and we need all efforts to collaborate together. I can give you one example from the incident in Marem, for example, which was initially committed by ISIS, not by the regime. The chemical attack happened in 2015 due to various military, security, political, administrative reasons. The investigation happened in 2021, 6 years later. And we were requested by the OPCW to help. So we don't only help in documenting our own incident, but also due to our technical capacity and geographical spread, we provide support to other investigations. So went to the scene and we collected samples 6 years later, and the testing was positive of using mustard gas. Then the fact-finding mission concluded its report by 2022, and the IIT delivered the report last February 2024. So it takes a lot of efforts, a lot of time, but we need all Syrian and international allies to move forward from documentation to analysis to investigation. Then what? We need accountability. And therefore we joined the group of 16 Syrian CSOs in the call to have an exceptional tribunal for the use of chemical attacks in Syria and hopefully in the world. And therefore, we arranged the civil society conference last year on the chemical attacks, and we continue to collaborate and keep this issue as a priority in our work. Because, as I said, saving lives is not only by delivering the direct emergency humanitarian assistance, it's also by addressing the root cause, prevent this from happening again, and improve the system to protect the whole world from such kind of threats.
Thank you very much, Farouk. Thank you for all the efforts that the White Helmets are doing, and for your call for this coalition work on the accountability issue. But moving from the efforts of Syrian organizations to what the international organizations are doing, and if I may ask you, Alice, on what has Human Rights Watch done when it comes to documenting chemical weapons use in Syria? And what is the role that organizations like Human Rights Watch and also their partners in Syria can do to bridge that that gap between documentation from one side and accountability from the other side?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks so much for having me today. So I work with the International Justice Program at Human Rights Watch. And as you probably know, Human Rights Watch with Syrian partners has a long history of documenting chemical weapons attack in Syria. We're in 2024, which means it's over 10 years since we documented the first and to this day the worst use of chemical weapons in Syria. It was in August 2013 in Ghouta that Syria broke this widely accepted international norm by using nerve agent weapons against its own population in an attack which killed hundreds of civilians, including many children. Within a month of the attack, through the analysis of open source evidence like YouTube videos, images of the remnants, and contacts with local residents, Human Rights Watch reached the conclusion that the Syrian government was likely responsible for the attack. This was a terrifying moment because the attack on Ghouta was the first major use of chemical weapons in 25 years since the Iraqi government had used chemical weapons on Iraqi Kurdish civilians. And the reports that survivors were sharing were harrowing. At the time, Syria wasn't part of the Chemical Weapons Convention, but the use of such weapons was already prohibited. It was banned by international norms. Syria breached that globally accepted norm. After the attack, Human Rights Watch and many others advocated for Syria to join the convention. And later that year, Syria did join. And it promised it would eliminate all of its chemical weapons program. And then it didn't. And the following years, Human Rights Watch continued documenting the Syrian government's chemical attacks, mostly with chlorine gas. So that was in northern Syria in 2014, in Idlib in March 2015, in Idlib again in April 2015, in Aleppo in 2016, and in Khan Sheikhoun in 2017, where the government used the same poisonous nerve agent it had used in Ghouta, sarin gas. By 2018, Human Rights Watch had collated and analyzed evidence of 85 chemical weapons attacks in Syria. We released a report that contextualized these, and it showed the systematic and widespread use of these weapons in the country, mainly by the government, with helicopter dropping chlorine, aircraft delivering poisonous nerve agents, and with chemical weapons even used in ground battle, and this happening in various parts of the country. It appeared to be part of the Syrian government military strategy, and civilians were bearing the cost. Human Rights Watch concluded that this could amount to crimes against humanity, further underlining and pressing for justice and accountability for Syrian, of course, but not only, to prevent, as my colleague was mentioning, further erosion of this norm of chemical weapons prohibition. Indeed, ISIS have also used chemical weapons in Syria and Iraq. So there had to be consequences for Syria's use of chemical weapons, just as there needed to be consequences for other abuses, for when it arbitrarily detained, tortured, and disappeared civilians, for its use of all sorts of prohibited weapons other than chemical weapons, that includes cluster munitions, for instance, and for when it targeted health facilities and other civilian infrastructures, and when it sponsored sexual violence against men, boys, and transgender women. The list of the abuses committed in Syria is very long, and they are widely known. The Caesar photos of torture detainees made the headlines. We investigated the Syrian torture machine. Our research and that of many other Syrian activists, civil society, and independent organizations were published in the media, discussed at the UN and in other international fora. All these reports paint a very grim picture of what happens when impunity prevails. But it also constitutes an immense body of evidence at the international community disposal. So despite Russia and China using their power at the UN Security Council to block any possibility of justice at the ICC, and despite Russia's success in disbanding the investigative mechanism in charge of determining responsibility for the chemical attacks in Syria, the Syrian community, as we all know here, didn't give up. In face of the failure of the international community, they found alternatives to advance justice. So I'm going to enumerate some of these now. Civil society advocated for the suspensions of Syria's right at the Chemical Weapons Convention, and that happened actually in 2021. In 2016, UN member country responded to the UN Security Council impasse by setting up an investigative team to gather, analyze, and secure evidence of serious crime for future prosecution. This is the work the IIIM has played since in facilitating access to evidence to foreign national jurisdiction. And in the absence of international tribunal with jurisdiction over these crimes, victims and survivors present in Europe are working to build cases for judicial authority in other countries to prosecute perpetrators of this grave abuse through the principle of universal jurisdiction. I'm going to let my colleague at CCHR expand on this, but just to say, these cases are multiplying in Germany, in France, in Sweden, and this is because of the documentation work that human rights organizations are doing. This information that they're collecting relates to chemical weapons attack, but also to other abuses, including those I mentioned earlier, detention, torture, and forced disappearance. And over the last few years, these efforts have been starting to bear fruits in European courts, which are starting addressing these crimes. Cases have multiplied, and some are even targeting high-level perpetrators. In some cases, in particular in Germany, universal jurisdiction has already led to significant conviction, including the important torture-related Koblenz trial that reached conviction in 2021 and 2022. So there is a long way to go and a lot of gaps in the exercise of universal jurisdiction. For instance, the suspects are unlikely to travel in jurisdiction where they could face arrest. And some of these trials will have to happen in absentia without the accused in the dockets. In Koblenz, what we have seen as Human Rights Watch is one of the major challenges was witness protection. For instance, some of the victims feared that they were at risk for testifying in the trial. Another issue was the language, because the court was holding the trial in German, so survivors, the people that were affected by the crimes, who did not speak German, depending on the reporting of those who could physically attend and have the interpretation device. And so this marginalized the participation of communities in these trials. All of this to say there's work to ensure that these trials have a significance. Civil society organizations are working to build on this experience to ensure that the prosecution become more and more meaningful. But this shouldn't be on the shoulders of NGOs. National judicial officials should work to ensure that information about these cases makes it to the most affected communities. And in the end, universal jurisdiction is just a puzzle piece in the fight against impunity for Syria. Even if we put all of these cases together, they are not a sufficient, acceptable picture of what accountability should look like for these crimes. There are small steps, but they are important to me because one of the Syrian activists I met told me that they break the wall of impunity brick by brick. He said to me, it's Ahmed Halmi, maybe you know him, and he said this to me at the occasion of another important moment in the fight against impunity, engaging Syrian state responsibility at the World Court in The Hague. This was in October, when the court was to hear arguments on provisional measures relating to the case on state-sponsored torture. As they had done in Koblenz and for every trial, a big group of Syrians gathered in front of the court and held up photos of their missing relatives, disappeared in Assad prisons. They came to witness the court's hearing of the Netherlands and Canada's case, alleging that Syria was breaching the Convention Against Torture. On that day in October, the Dutch and Canadian lawyers described at length the unlawful treatment of detainees, inhuman detention conditions, enforced disappearances, sexual and gender-based violence, violence against children, and, of course, the use of chemical weapons. They quoted the numerous reports by UN entities, international and Syrian organizations like ours, and this was a huge moment for the Syrian people I spoke with. The Syrian authorities, on their part, they didn't even show up to the hearing. In November, the court issued a landmark ordering Syrian authorities to prevent acts of torture against its own citizens. 5 months later, it's clear that they haven't complied with the order. And the families keep on pushing. Last year, their advocacy led to the establishment of a UN new mechanism to address the fate of over 100,000 missing people in Syria. So over 10 years on, there still hasn't been justice for all the abuse that we and so many have documented and that we keep on documenting today. The people in the photos held in front of the courts around Europe are still missing, still in detention, still being tortured. The ICJ case is an important opportunity to scrutinize Syria's long-standing role in the torture of countless civilians. But there is an unresolvable tension between the scale and gravity of the crimes committed in Syria and the incredibly insufficient consequences that have been set in response. What we have documented in Syria is a level and scale of criminality that merits a more holistic response by the international community. And I think it's why the work of everyone in this room is key to make justice a priority and make it harder for anyone to bargain away accountability in diplomatic discussions around Syria.
Merci beaucoup, Alice, for this great overview of all the documentation efforts and all the mechanisms that have been created through the past, unfortunately, 13 years of this conflict, and we're in year 14. But moving on to Dr. Zanders, Alice mentioned a lot of the different mechanisms that exist today. But what do you think really are the avenues that exist for the prosecution of chemical weapons use?
Thank you very much. Thank you also for the invitation here. And sorry, get closer. Okay. Thank you for the invitation and listening to the testimonials we've already heard. It reminded me of me working in the field of chemical armament and disarmament since 1986. And that was in the middle of the Iran-Iraq war when chemical weapons were accelerating. And I was just remembering, like a déjà vu, sitting in front of a whole group of Kurdish people, refugees, people living in Belgium here, also explaining these types of things that we have already been talking about here today. And, you know, being a Belgian, the other thing is, of course, the very first major attack with chemical weapons happened here, near Ypres on the 22nd of April. We've just had that anniversary. Now, to give you just, you know, some good news, today is the 26th anniversary of the entry into force of the Chemical Weapons Convention. So that means that we have totally different tools that were never, ever before. Now, coming to the topic here and having done a lot of historical studies on chemical weapons. And for a long time, I've had the frustration, why is it that at not a single moment in the history of modern chemical warfare has there been accountability for the use of chemical weapons, despite the fact that during the First War, there was already the 1899 Hague Declaration for Two. Declaration for Two on the use of asphyxiating gases. Then we have the 1925 Geneva Protocol, then the Chemical Weapons Convention much later. And a couple of aspects come to the fore. And one is, and this is really frustrating if one comes to think of it, but if chemical weapons are used in an armed conflict, then there are much worse atrocities being committed. And if I listen to Alice's introduction, that's exactly the impression. To put it statistically, if we look at the approximate numbers of people killed in the Syrian civil war, we have about 600,000 people or so killed in various circumstances, under various circumstances. And for chemical weapons, we are probably around 2,000 people. And here we are at the crux of the problem, because if you want to pursue justice for the victims, to have tribunals functioning, well, either you have to set up a special tribunal focusing specifically on chemical weapons, or if you do it under international justice tribunals, for example, the International Criminal Court or so, then chemical weapons will be caught up in a package of other atrocities, and there won't be the space relative to the other atrocities. And that is something we always have dealt with. In the First World War, the ratio of dead from chemical warfare relative to overall death in the First World War is 1.5%. Iran-Iraq war, we have exactly the same thing. And with the chemical, with the Syrian civil war, I've given the numbers. But as said, today we have the Chemical Weapons Convention. Because of the Iran-Iraq war, we have the United Nations General Secretary's investigative mechanism for chemical weapons, which was used already during the Iran-Iraq war. And I can tell you the investigations have advanced very much. So just to give you an idea of what we have, and you can also see it here. But basically, we have two main actors, let's say. One is the United Nations, and the other one is the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Now, the OPCW, you must know, is not a UN body. That's an independent body. So when we go back to 2013, you will remember that even before Ghouta, there were already accounts of the chemical weapon use, and that was actually, Assad himself who requested for an investigation because he wanted to put the blame on the al-Nusra front and so on for those attacks. And the investigators of the Secretary General's mechanism, they were in Ghouta when the incident happened in August. I have spoken to these people, and they were witnessing the attack from the roof of the hotel in which they were staying, preparing for the other investigations. So that was really a very bad situation. Human Rights Watch documented that attack, but the investigators got a new mandate, and they were immediately able to go to Ghouta, which means the evidence was still fresh. But talking about all the formal reports we have on chemical weapons use, so the Secretary General's mechanism issued a report in September and the final report in December of 2013. But then, and this is this striped line here, the OPCW, which has the expertise in investigations, was contracted is a big word, but was solicited to carry out the actual investigation together with the World Health Organization. Then, as we've already heard, Syria joined the Chemical Weapons Convention, became a party in October of 2013. But soon afterwards, before the end of the year, we were getting the first reports of a possible chlorine attack. So early in 2014, the OPCW created a new body within the organization, which is the fact-finding mission to carry the field inspections. They issued several reports, and to be able to attribute responsibility, because that was a big pressure, the no impunity thing that we've been hearing here. The OPCW is a technical organization. So to attribute, there had to be something else. So the OPCW and the UN set up this joint investigative mechanism. But to put it briefly, that is essentially what I would call a peer review type of organization. They looked at the reports by the fact-finding mission, evaluated them, corrected them in certain instances, but also validated many of the findings. Of course, with the Khan Sheikhoun attack early in 2017, the fact-finding mission went there. The joint investigative mechanism evaluated and came to the conclusion that actually the precursors used for the sarin attack were exactly the same production batch as the one that had been used in Ghouta in 2013. And that, of course, led to the veto from Russia to they gave Syria, from that point onwards, Syria and Russia got into total denial of any Syrian responsibility for chemical weapons. So the demise of the joint investigative mechanism then led to the establishment of the investigation and identification team in the OPCW to do exactly the same. But this is a very controversial decision. It was not unanimously adopted. On the far side, then, we also have the Human Rights Council that has produced several reports updated. And then the important element is the IIIM, the International Impartial and Independent Mechanism, which basically collects all the reports. This is an important instrument to look at for your ambitions on having an international special tribunal, because the OPCW has a very strict confidentiality policy. There is even an annex to the Chemical Weapons Convention on confidentiality, which means that none of the reports can be given to organizations like yourself to build up for a trial. Yes, there are the public reports, but all the forensic and other evidence is not available. However, with the creation of the IIT in the OPCW, there is a provision that these reports and evidence can be given to the IIIM. And the IIIM, as far as I understand, reaches out to the victim communities and to civil society in Syria. So this is probably an avenue to do. The whole thing that comes out of this are big question marks in my mind, because what is the finality of all these documents and the reports? Because there's a lot of confidential information. How are you going to build up a watertight case? How are you going to link specific individuals to specific attacks and so on? So far, units can be identified. The people high up in the hierarchy can be identified. But if you literally want to go to the sergeant, corporal, and individual soldier or a pilot, then you may be in trouble there. And to conclude, I just want to give you this overview of the history of the constraints. And I've mentioned already the Hague Peace Conference. But important, right at the bottom of the screen is the Rome Statute that created the ICC. It is important to realize that in Article 8 of the Rome Statute, the language with regard to chemical weapons is derived from the 1925 Geneva Protocol. It's not the language of the Chemical Weapons Convention. The reason why is that the negotiators at the time feared if the Chemical Weapons Convention and the Biological and Toxic Weapons Convention would have been used in the language of the ICC might rule on the illegality of nuclear weapons by association. So just bear in mind, the Geneva Protocol is still an important tool. It's a lot vaguer. It focuses on use, of course, but it means that there is no direct link to the OPCW, which might have, it's possible that the OPCW provides documents to the ICC, but I can't say, I'm not a legal expert in those matters. So to conclude, there are certain elements that I'm pessimistic about based on history. The good thing is we now have the OPCW. We have a variety of UN bodies actively engaged in producing reports and on collecting all types of information going on. But the one thing that worries me a bit, and Alyssa's presentation also kind of referred to, if I hear the countries where there is the possibility for universal jurisdiction, then as a European, I say, but it's all in Europe. And, you know, it creates different types of cleavages. So one thing, perhaps I should not say that as a non-Arab person, but where are the Arab countries in that? Since the end of the Second World War, with the exception of the Vietnam War, all instances of chemical warfare took place in the Middle East, and they have nothing to do with Israel. It's against their own people, it's against fellow Muslims, it's against fellow Arabs. In the 1960s, the 1980s, the 2000s, and so on. I was very frustrated when I was a lot at the OPCW during the evacuation of all the chemical munitions from Syria under an international coalition. Many countries were actively involved or paid in a voluntary fund. From the Arab states, not a single dollar was committed to that. And then I see how Syria is back into the fold of the Arab League. Then I say, okay, where are we going in terms of addressing this? Sorry that I have to say this as an outsider to the region, but I have been very involved in it over the years, and it's something I had to express. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zanders. There's nothing to be sorry of. Whether Saddam Hussein's chemical weapons use against his own population in Halabja and in other places, but Bashar al-Assad's use of chemical weapons in Ghouta and in other places. Saddam was never expelled from the Arab League, and Bashar was expelled from the Arab League and then readmitted. So, you know, we Arabs, and I'm sorry to say that, our understanding of justice is a bit different, let's say, than how Europeans understand it. And it's very sad because we don't have a mechanism within the Arab world, whether within the institutions of the Arab League or the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, that is based in Jeddah, or the Gulf Cooperation Council that deals with justice issues. We have this conference of ministers of the interior so that they can all terrorize us, right, as citizens of the Arab world. But we definitely don't have a similar thing on the justice side, which is very unfortunate, but which is very real. And hence this glimmer of hope that Syrians see in universal jurisdiction being applied in Europe, and this call also from Syrian civil society organizations for universal jurisdiction to be used also by other states. And eventually getting into the idea of an exceptional tribunal, treaty-based tribunal between different governments to deal with this taboo of violating the Chemical Weapons Convention. Because to be honest, the big question in mind today is, what if Putin decides to use a nerve agent in Ukraine? He has done it in London. So it won't be the first time he would do it, but he has done it against individuals. What if he does it on a large scale? If not in Ukraine, in Transnistria, in Moldova, in the different, small entities in Georgia and elsewhere. So the threat is real, and the threat is not limited, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, to the Middle East anymore, because now it's in the heart of Europe, right? Ukraine is not across the Mediterranean. Ukraine is right here, and Putin talked about tactical nuclear weapons, so this trajectory of impunity can give very creative ideas to a lot of crazy people around the world. And I don't want to limit myself to Ukraine and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but also to African dictators in the Western Sahara, to different actors that might see that what happened with Saddam Hussein, that he was eventually toppled, and we had the Chemical Weapons Convention after the use in Halabja. But now we have the Chemical Weapons Convention, and it was violated, and nothing happened. So and that's why it's triple more important. I'm not saying that what happened in Iraq is not horrific. It's equally horrific, but on the norm, from the norm perspective, what happened in Syria is taking it to another level. I'm sorry, I don't want to hijack the conversation. You got me really engaged. Moving on to a witness perspective, let's say, or also from a campaigner perspective, if I may say, what do you think is the role, Amina, of victims in shaping this big meaning, this big word, justice? What can different victim groups, victim associations do in dealing with this justice? Elise referred to a lot of the efforts that Families for Freedom, Ta'afi, and others have done. But what else can be done? And in what ways might justice for victims differ from the traditional concepts of justice that we're talking about at the moment?
Thank you, Asma. Can you hear me? Okay. So sadly, starting, to be honest, with Ukraine, earlier this week, there was an event in Berlin about Ukraine, Syria, and the role of Russian propaganda in Syria. And that was the chemical attacks. It was something that the Ukrainians brought. Is it something that we should be concerned about? And it was really devastating that this is still, it happened in Syria, it's happening in Ukraine. It's 11 years of impunity since at least the Ghouta chemical attack, and still happening. In theory, we could answer and say, yeah, of course, we know survivors and families, that groups and the families of the victims play a crucial role. They have the most important role to play, and that's in theory, and that's something I guess we can all agree on. But when it comes to practice, it's not the same, and it's not about, it feels not the same, and I'm not the only one who's feeling that. There have been conversations about this and still continuing, and that's not being judgmental, but also trying to derive this with agency and trying to tell starting with Syrian civil society to the broader NGOs to the decision makers. This is what we want. We want to be on, not only have a seat on the table, but we want to be taken seriously. And there's a lot to say, to be honest. So I'm trying to summarize my points. And it's for victims and survivors, justice is not about punishing. It's more about creating this process of kind of validating the experiences of the survivors and the victims and acknowledging the suffering, not pampering. It's really important to keep a balance. It's something that we see that it's just, okay, we don't know how to empower, but let's pamper. And it's actually very disempowering when that happens. And survivors, in conversations with survivors and families of victims, there was always frustration regarding their involvement in the process, advocating for justice. We're not yet in the justice process that we can speak about. On many occasions, the participation is barely symbolic, and it's like a tick box. We want, okay, we want this and that, and we want a survivor. Okay, we want a sad story. We want something to be told. It's important that we remind ourselves. It's important to be reminded. It's not enough to include survivors and victims' families at the table simply to just fulfill a requirement. It's not a requirement. Their presence and input must be genuinely valued. And we need environments where survivors feel that they can be taken seriously, especially in the legal world, to be honest. It's a tricky one. Being part of the justice process is not just about showing up at the end of the verdict and okay, be informed about the process. Survivors should be involved from the beginning, helping to shape the kind of demand that they want and how justice can be pursued. This means that being part of the brainstorming, being together on the way, being partners in this process, and ensuring that the process is victim-centered approach meaningfully, not just using this word as a cliche that we could put here and there. It's not just about being informed, it's about being included in a way that makes a difference. Not being informed. I feel like this always occurs that, okay, but the victims or the families, that groups are informed. But when they're informed of the results of meetings that happening far away from them, that's not the same. It's what talking about the concept of justice and kind of, or maybe later tangible this post-colonial perspective of justice and having this top-down solutions that being established, as you said, Assad. Unfortunately, we don't have mechanisms, but also it doesn't mean that we should have other solutions to fit our situation. What families of the victims and the survivors are doing is transforming the concept from something clinical and detached into something real and personal. We need to make justice personal because it is. We need to remind the world that chemical weapons attacks are not just events and not be stuck in the theories and be reminded they are tragedies with lasting consequences and underlying lasting. And as our colleague from the White Helmets has referred to the first responders who witnessed dozens of chemical attacks, and they're still there on the ground, but they're still there, first responders. We're looking at this as if it's something happened in the past and it's ended. And it's very theoretical. It's not human or personal when we look at the process this way. Our role here is to ensure that the justice addresses the full scope of this impact, from the immediate aftermath to the long-term effects. And it's something that I hear a lot from other fellow survivors, to the victims' bodies, minds, and communities. Nobody talk about the chemical attacks injuries and the informed trauma-informed approach in the processes, and also the psychosocial support for the victims and how it affects them as a community. We're talking about Syria here and being still connected to Syria, while 90% in Syria of Syria's population are living under the poverty line. And we're talking here, that includes people who survived the chemical attacks and numerous attacks and violations and survived the recent last year earthquake. When I worked in the field hospital in المدني, I saw the chaos, horror firsthand, and the pain, the confusion, and how desperate the efforts to save lives. These experiences I won't forget, and I'm sure thousands of survivors of the chemical attacks won't forget either. Survivor guilt is a common for many of us who survived. That day showed us how much we were on our own, and we still live with this fact. When I speak to others who lived through that day, we realize that there are fewer days in our lives when we don't ask ourselves why it was them and not us. The burden of knowing, surviving, and witnessing such a horror is something that never goes away. It becomes part of our identity as survivors, shaping the way we see the world and our place in it. Many survivors were not as lucky as I am. I'm very privileged to be here today. They are first responders again. They are people who are still living in the regime-held areas. There are people who live in neighboring countries in the fear of deportation, not only being prevented of the right of being here or being here, but also living in constant fear. And that's something maybe I will address later. It's very important that we don't look at justice as a distant concept. For me, I look at who am I to be here in Brussels and tell people inside Syria survived Ghouta chemical attack or Khan Sheikhoun, and they live in the regime-held areas, and I tell them, yes, justice is this and justice is that. It's just not a practice that even survivors themselves should practice on each other, and the cycle starts from there. There is no size-fits-all solution. My justice is important, and how I feel about justice is important, but this is also the same for everyone else. We have the responsibility to ensure that justice is not a word we use to make ourselves feel better. It's a lovely word to use, to be honest, or celebrate untangible achievements that really untangible to others. For us, that make me feel good. For others, that doesn't solve my problem. It doesn't heal my injury. It doesn't help me. I don't have a safe place to be at, and I might be arrested tomorrow. Where is my justice? Justice has to mean something to those still living in danger, for the families who lost loved ones, and for the communities that continue to suffer. Not only mean, but do. Meanings and feelings are important, how we feel about the process, but doing. And this morning I was speaking to another survivor. She pointed out the importance of looking after chemical attack survivors who have severe injuries or continuous life issues that preventing them from continuing their lives. Life endangering or threatening mental health issues. That's the struggle is real, and we need to look at it. And this is part of the process. We're looking at the process of justice, a distant thing happening in courts and courtrooms, and that's great, but this is part of one element of the process. Our role here is to make justice again personal. Behind every case, there are lives distorted, families torn apart, and communities shattered. And there are not enough times to repeat this, to be honest, or emphasize it. Survivors of the chemical attacks are not just dealing with trauma and loss, but also against the wall of indifference and denial, and that's another aspect. It's not enough to speak out. We need to make to make people listen. We're fighting against a system that often prefers to look away, to forget, and to move on. That's something not new. After survivors and families of victims find the courage to speak, the real challenge begins, getting our voices into the halls of power. It's not just about recounting what happened, it's about making sure our words and these attempts have an impact. Dr. Mohammed Katoub, a friend and a survivor and the first responder, last year he addressed the UN Security Council. He said, there are ways to stop doing nothing. And I found this specific sentence very moving and brilliant. There are always ways to stop doing nothing. And as much as I know that the exceptional chemical weapons tribunal is not the ultimate solution or the solution that's gonna tick all the ticking boxes that we have, but that's something that the Syrian civil society and survivors and the families of the Association of the Victims of the Chemical Attack got together last year and worked to start shaping this demand. Today we have a petition to urge more efforts into the establishment of the chemical weapons exceptional tribunal, and we have 10,000 signatures on the online petition on cwtribunal.org. I urge you all to visit the petition page to sign and to spread the word. If this demand or achieving any steps towards this demand makes a very teeny bit of justice for any victims or survivors of the chemical attacks, we need to work towards it and get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amina, for those great words, for all the recommendations that you made, and for this very vivid recollection, but also very thoughtful ideas on what can be done and what should be done, really, from terms of accountability. And to add insult to injury, when regime forces took over Ghouta, they actually desecrated the graves of the people who died from the chemical attack in Ghouta, and intimidated a lot of the doctors that responded to the chemical attack in Ghouta, and actually also they did this show with the Russians at the OPCW, with bringing people to deny actually what happened in August 2013. So not only we have a duty of justice, but we also have a duty of memory, because the regime is actively trying to play into that denial narrative that nothing happened in August 2013. Nothing happened in April 2017 in Fajr, and nothing happened in April 2018 again in Douma. So on this note, Jumana, where are we with the accountability efforts today? Are we advancing? Are we behind? How is universal jurisdiction working? Can universal jurisdiction be used for chemical weapons? I think we have an instance now in France, if I'm not mistaken, and also from a gender lens, how can we make sure that where we're addressing all those issues that are related to chemical weapons use, we're being inclusive, and we're also taking the additional burdens that have been imposed on them.
شكرا جزيلا. أنا راح أحكي بالعربي إذا حدا بده سماعات. يعني صار الحكي صعب بعد أمينة الصراحة، والتقييم بعد كل المداخلات الغنية اللي قدمت. صعب أساساً يعني وجود إجابة محددة عن هذا السؤال، هل فعلاً حققنا تقدم على هذا الصعيد، أو وين نحن، أو تقييم كل جهود العدالة اللي صارت إلى الآن، لأنه بيختلف حسب المنظور اللي نحن عم نشوف منه. إذا بدنا نشوف حجم الجرائم اللي ارتكبت، تأثير الضرر حاصل على المجتمع مثل اللي ذكرته أمينة واللايف، ونشوف إنه كل هذه الجهود إنه ماذا حققت إلى الآن. النظام مستمر، الجرائم ما زالت ترتكب، يعني لم يتغير شيء بالمعنى الملموس، يعني كان المرجو منا إنه تتغير رغم كل هاي الجهود العدالة. ولكن إذا نظرنا من جانب ثاني، وهو جانب نفسه اللي حكيت عنه، أسعى الواجب والالتزام والسعي، ونحن كلياتنا بنعرف إنه تاريخياً إلى الآن التجارب العدالة دائماً متأخرة للأسف. العدالة بتمشي ببطء شديد، يعني بما لا يتناسب مع احتياجات الضحايا بالمعنى القانوني أو الناجين والناجيات. يعني بدأ صبر وتركيز، وإنه السعي المستمر للوصول إلى ما يمكن، يعني أفضل نتيجة ممكن الوصول إليها. على صعيد الولاية القضائية العالمية Universal Jurisdiction، وهذا كان مسار وحيد متاح للسوريين والسوريات من البداية، مع إغلاق محكمة الإحالة إلى محكمة الجنايات الدولية، وطبعا النظام الوطني هو المرتكب، يعني هو خارج أصلا هاي الاحتمالات. الولاية القضائية العالمية هي يعني نظام أو مبدأ قضائي أو نظام بديل، فهو أنا برأيي إنه هو عنده limitation، يعني بيضل محدود. وما جرى من 2012 مع بداية التوثيقات اللي كل حكوا عنها الزملاء بعدين، إنه جمع هاي الأدلة ومع وصول عدد كبير من السوريين والسوريات إلى أوروبا وضحايا، وبناء ملفات قضائية في الجرائم الأكثر خطورة على السوريين، مثل التعذيب، القتل خارج القانون، العنف الجنسي. وما تم يعني في ألمانيا هناك 5 دعاوى قدمت مثلا من المركز الأوروبي للحقوق الدستورية وحقوق الإنسان بالشراكة مع المنظمات السورية الATM والمركز السوري للدراسات والأبحاث القانونية. هاي النتيجة في ألمانيا وفي النمسا وفي النرويج وفي السويد. هي النتائج هذا العمل أعتقد أنه فعل الولايات القضائية، فعل هذا النظام القضائي على الأقل في ألمانيا بعد أن كان شبه نائم، رغم أنه هو من 2002 بس كان محدود جدا. بدأ يعطي ثمار بالمعنى القانوني، مثل مذكرات الاعتقال، حكيت مطولا ما راح تذكر عن محاكمة كوبلنز اللي هي فعلا اعترفت بجرائم القتل والتعذيب والعنف الجنسي كجرائم ضد الإنسانية، وفي وثيقة قضائية اعترف عليها دوليا. هذا الإنجاز بالمعنى القانوني ممكن يكون إنجاز اليوم. هذا التحقيقات الهيكلية والدفع في في العديد من الدول الأوروبية هو بعتقد خطوة مهمة اليوم في محاكمات في بفرانكفورت، في بهامبورغ قادما، في بهولندا، في بفرنسا المحاكمات اللي تقريبا في ماي ب20 ماي المحاكمات الغيابية علي مملوك. أي كل هذه الجهود أنا أعتقد أنه هي خطوات مهمة جدا على صعيد معرفة الحقيقة، تثبيت حق السوريين الضحايا، تثبيت السردية السورية سردية الضحايا وماذا فعل في مواجهة سردية النظام السوري، الإرهابيين ومحاربة الإرهاب من هذا الصعيد. اليوم أعتقد أن هذه الجهود ساعدت أو هيأت لبقاء الأجندة السورية، لبقاء سوريا على الأجندة الدولية، وهذا أيضا أدلة دامغة ويعني كرس أو ملف أساسي في النظر لأي عملية سياسية مستقبلا بتنظر في مستقبل سوريا. على الأقل إلى الآن رغم كل الجهود اللي عم تبذل في سبيل التطبيع مع النظام، هذه الإثباتات والأدلة القانونية ولو نظريا بس هي تمنع التطبيع مع النظام، وإنه يكون هدول القادة اللي صدرت بالمسؤولين المرتكبين اللي صدرت بحقهم كل هاي المذكرات الاعتقال أو الأحكام واللي أثبتت سعة نطاق الجرائم ومنهجيتها بأنها كانت سياسة ممنهجة من النظام، أعتقد أنها تؤثر ولها قيمة. ولكن إذا نذهب للفجوات مثل ما قلت إنه هي يعني مسار محدود أو له محدوديته. هناك العديد من الفجوات اللي ذكروا إحداها أو التحديات، منها عامل اللغة، عامل صعوبة التحقق من المحاكمات، وفجوة أساسية هو انتقائية أو خلينا سلكتيفيتي، يعني هي مسار متاح للضحايا الموجودين في أوروبا فقط، وهو ليست عدالة شاملة. الضحايا الموجودين خارج أوروبا أساساً ما عندهم يعني وصول لهذا التقاضي اللي عم نقول هو يعني على الأقل رمزياً هو اللي بيفتح باب العدالة بهذا الموضوع. وكثير من التحديات الأخرى، التحديات ذكرتوها كمان عشان أكرر على صعيد الحماية. اليوم حتى المحاكمات اللي في كوبلينز، في حتى الجارية في فرانكفورت، النظام ما زال هناك رهائن واللي هن أهالي أفراد عائلات المدعين أو المشاركين أو الشهود أو الشاهدات اللي ما زالوا في سوريا وتحت يعني يمكن الوصول لهم والانتقام من النظام. هذا عم بيحد كثير كمان من رغبة الكثير من الضحايا الناجين والناجيات الموجودين بأوروبا لحتى يكونوا جزء من أي تقاضي أو عمليات مساءلة. هلا أعتقد الشيء المشرق هو دور المجتمع المدني السوري، المنظمات الحقوقية ولكن المجتمع المدني بشكل عام، وما فعلا أحرزه على هذا الصعيد. دوره بدعم الضحايا أساسا، بدعم روابط العائلات والضحايا، بالدفع والشراكات مع المؤسسات الحقوقية الأوروبية والدولية بدفع هذا المسار. يعني مقارنة احنا بنقول على الصعيد السوري مقارنة بكثير سياقات أخرى وللأسف يعني مثل اليمن، ليبيا والعديد من السياقات الأخرى بيتواصلوا معنا يقولون لنا إنه واو خلونا نتعلم منكم كيف عملتوا أنتم لحتى يوصل تضل هاي القضية وتبدأ هاي الجهود وتفعيل الجلال القضائية العالمية والجهود اللي وصلت. يعني فالأمر نسبي دائما. أعتقد أنه لعب دور مهم وما زال وما يجب أنه يستمر. مثل ما تفضلتوا المؤسسة الدولية المعنية بالمفقودين، كل الجهود والمؤسسات والمبادرات يعني الدولية اللي وجدت هي جاءت نتيجة مناصرة طويلة وتكامل جهود من بداية من المجتمع المدني السوري وانطلاقا بالمؤسسات الشركات وصلت لهم. أنا أتمنى أنه فعلا محكمة خاصة بالتحقيق بالكيماوي إنه تكون فعلا هدف سواء لسوريا ولا لغيرها مثل ما هو المطروح بالسياقات، وإنه يصير المناصرة والسعي ويكون في قبول دولي لهذا المطلب اللي محق لكل السوريين. أتمنى أنه تستمر تفعيل الجهود، مذكرات لو أنه بالمعنى الملموس ما عم تعطي نتائج مباشرة يعني بمعنى، ولكن لها هي قيمة رمزية وتأثير كبير مستقبلاً. إجراء تحقيقات إضافية حول الجرائم المرتكبة على كل الجرائم الدولية، صدور مذكرات اعتقال اللي هي بتوضح اللي بتكون مبنية على تحقيقات، والاستمرار في، والأهم شيء هو الدعم للسوريين والسوريات المتضررين وهن أعداد كبيرة. يعني أنا بتمنى إنه هذا الملف ما ينحط على جنب، خصوصا مع الظروف الدولية اليوم تصاعد يعني للأسف أوضاع خطيرة في أوكرانيا، في غزة، في هاي اللي بصير له الأولوية ويتراجع هذا الملف. لن أطيل أكثر وشكرا جزيلا لهي الفرصة مرة ثانية.
شكرا جزيلا لك جمانة. Thank you very much. I will now open it to the floor for questions. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand, and a colleague of ours will be giving you the mic. We will also be taking questions online, but let's start from the floor. Fadhil, please. And we'll take 3 questions.
طيب تمام، شكرا أسعد وشكرا شكرا أسعد وشكرا للأصدقاء كلهم. أنا المهم هلا طبعا يعني ملف الأسلحة الكيميائية هو يعني أخطر ملف واجه السوريين، وحتى يعني الثورة السورية بعد الهجوم الغوطة مش مثل قبل. وانشغل كثير يعني على الملف، ولكن يعني ما حققت أي نتيجة لأنه الأمور خارج يعني قدرة السوريين. أنا عندي يعني هلا مثل ما حكت جمانة إنه في محدودية بالولاية القضائية، ومحاولة إنه يعني تأسيس محكمة هي فكرة يعني عظيمة وحلوة، ولكن هي غير قابلة للتطبيق. ولكن يعني غير قابلة للتطبيق لأسباب عديدة. في أول شيء نقاش بين الجوريست، بين فقهاء القانون نفسه، إنه هل هذا وكيف تطبيقها وهيك. والأمر الآخر هو الإرادة السياسية، هذا الأهم. إذا تجاوزنا الشق القانوني يعني عدد كبير من الدول هي بتشارك لتسمعنا، وشاركت وجهت وحضرت نقاشات وبتسمع المسؤولين شو عندهم أفكار، ولكن يعني هذا مستوى، وإنه هن implemented بدهم يعملوا هذا مستوى ثاني، والأغلب هو عم يقول إنه لا. فشو يعني فاروق، شو الخطوات القادمة؟ يعني هل بنوقف هون؟ كيف فينا نناصر الملف أكثر؟ إنه الجواب إنه لا هي المحكمة. هلا نحن بالشبكة إنه من زمان الاستراتيجية تبعنا هذا الملف إنه في محكمة العدل الدولية، والنظام خرق الاتفاقية. فمثل ما عملت هولندا وكندا نتيجة خرق اتفاقية التعزير، يعني دول ثانية عم نطلب منها، فرنسا وغيرها، حتى من هولندا نفسها. يعني أي دولة فيها إنه نتيجة هذا إنه تروح قدام محكمة الICJ، وهي محكمة متأسسة، ما بدنا نأسس يعني محكمة، وهذا مناصرة للملف. يعني النتيجة راح تكون متقاربة. يعني شفنا نحن محكمة يعني قضية التعزير بدت تحيي الملف التعزير وأخذ. أما إنشاء محكمة من الأصل، الدول بالحقيقة ما مهتمة، والجواب كان لا يعني بشكل واضح. فشو الاستراتيجيات ضمن هذا؟ هل نحن نعمل شيفتينج ولا شو ولا؟
شكرا فضل. Any more questions from the floor? Please.
Thank you. Hi. It's not really a question, it's much more an observation and a bit of a reflection as well. My name is Aida Burnett Cargill. I am Mine Action coordinator inside of Syria. So I work a lot with White Helmets and Fatima as well on a daily basis. Before I was that, and while I'm that, I'm also a Bosnian who has seen atrocities in the 90s, and we are 30 years after, and we are still working on justice. So the concept of justice is a long-term intervention that, and our justice is really was made possible simply because there was a support from the international community. I'm afraid that Syria does not have that, nowhere near. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you for this panel, and I think for this extremely, extremely important topic to discuss. I wish to also say that bombs have fallen, chemical weapons have been used, and they are still there, not only threatening the lives and the limbs of Syrians, but they're also leaving contamination, environmental hazard that is there for years to come. It's not going to disappear. So I'm hoping that at some point of time, we will be able to clear all of those. And it's already, 13 years, 14 years into the conflict, we are still trying to persuade donors that we need to clear the bombs before we do anything else. So sorry about that, unrelated, but very much related. Thank you for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ziad. You said we have some people online.
I'll read them, they are in Arabic.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
بالبداية في مداخلة وسؤالين كلهم من السيد محمد نظر شربجي. شكرا على جهودكم على إلقاء الضوء على هذا الموضوع الهام، وسأدخل بالموضوع مباشرة. أرى أن المجتمع الدولي لم يتعامل مع ملف الكيماوي والتقارير المقدمة بشكل جدي ورادع لما يقوم به النظام، بدءا من الغوطة الشرقية وزملكة ومعظمية الشام، وهذا ما أعطى النظام جرأة لتكرار استخدامه أكثر من مرة وفي أكثر من محافظة، رغم كل الفيديوهات والمشاهدات على وسائل التلفزة والسوشيال ميديا وغيره. وهنا سأطرح سؤالين للسيدة أليس. ألا يوجد آليات للأمم المتحدة ومؤسساتها من لجان التدخل الدولي المباشر لمنع وردع النظام باستخدام الأسلحة المحرمة دوليا ضد المدنيين قبل أن يقوم النظام بالمماطلة وإضاعة آثار ودلائل لجرائمه وتضليل العدالة الدولية؟ السؤال الثاني موجه للدكتور باسكال. أشكرك على بداية حديثك والتشبيه بالفترة النازية وذكرك على الدور المخيب للدول العربية وجامعتها حول أحداث ومجريات الضربات الكيماوية وآثارها على المواطن السوري صحيا ونفسيا وبيئيا. ألا ترى معي ضرورة الطلب من المجتمع الدولي إلغاء شعار العدالة بين قوسين الميزان، أو إعادة ضبطه ومعايرته لإعادته بشكل متوازن وحيادي، وأن تقوم المحاكم الدولية بالعمل على مكيال واحد؟
Thank you very much, Ziad. Farouk, why don't you take Fadl's question, and then I think we have a question for Elise and a question for Dr. Pascal.
جوابي أولاً نحن محكومون بالأمل، فلا نحن لا يزال في عنا أمل بتأسيس محكمة استثنائية خاصة باستخدام الأسلحة الكيماوية في سوريا. ما عندنا توقع أنه جميع دول العالم حيكون عندها نفس الالتزام ونفس الهمة. لا شك في دول سياسياً غير مهتمة وربما ضد المبدأ بحد ذاته، ولكن أيضاً في دول أخرى حول العالم وليست من اتجاه واحد ممكن تدعم هذا المسار. نحن بالنهاية كسوريين بعتقد ما كثير بيعنينا شو هي المنصة الفون قد ما بتعنينا العدالة بالمنصات. ولذلك لا أرى مانع أن نكون نحن عم نشتغل على أكثر من مسار بنفس الوقت. نحن ما في عنا ضمانة أي مسار منهم حينجح، بس نحن في عنا إيماننا والتزامنا وتسليمنا أنه هذا مسار طويل الأمد. ما حدا للأسف أكيد بنحلم ونتمنى العدالة كانت امبارح ولا بكرة، بس ما واقعيا نحن ما لنا متوقعين إنه السنة الجاية حيتحاكموا المجرمين. ولكن هي مسارات وما بصير تحط البيت كله بسلة واحدة. فخلونا نضل عم ننسق تقنيا وننسق أيضا على سبيل المناصرة لندعم مختلف المسارات وتكون مسارات متكاملة، ونوصل صوت للأطراف الدولية رسالة إنه نحن كسوريين ما عم نتنافس بهي المسارات، نحن عم نبحث عن العدالة. فالمسؤولية أمام المجتمع الدولي اللي إنه يختار أي مسار بيتوائم مع آلياته البيروقراطية المقيتة بالنسبة لنا كسوريين، حتى بالنهاية يكون في منصة ما حصل فيها العدالة.
شكرا كثير فاروق. أليس, do you want to take the
Sure.
question online?
I do think that my colleague would probably maybe be also able to explain on the UN mechanisms, but I don't think there is any to ensure an intervention. If I understood well the question against chemical weapons used, and I think what we need to ensure is that the consequences for using them are very strong, and that there are consequences such as sanctions and indictments, etc., for the use of these weapons, so that the deterrence effect of this convention doesn't disappear, and that others don't replicate these attacks.
Thank you very much, Elise. I'm going to go to you, Dr. Zanrous, with the second part of the question, and ask you also, where does responsibility to protect fall under all of this? Or is it completely irrelevant in that context?
Thank you very much for the questions and the comments. And first of all, I would like to take the opportunity of the testimonials that I have heard here around the table. I think they are of very high quality. I appreciate them a lot. A good mix of fact and emotion, and to find that balance is always a very delicate thing to do. So thank you all for that. Coming to the questions to me, justice delayed, justice denied. It is a very difficult issue to answer. Because, since I participate in meetings at the OPCW, I am an external technical expert advisor to the delegation of the European Union. So I participate in many of the meetings and I have knowledge of the internal discussions. And there are huge fights going on within the OPCW. You have to know that in an international organization, the foundation typically is consensus decision-making. Because of the Syrian war, within the OPCW, we have moved away from consensus decision-making in 2013 to majority voting right now. You cannot imagine, unless you participate in it, in the diplomatic efforts that are necessary to get a qualified majority. That is 2/3 of the states present and voting to approve a particular decision. And those decisions are contested also. But I want to give you the example. We had the third review conference, third or the fourth, review conference in 2013. And that was before Syria had joined the Chemical Weapons Convention. It was after the first report. It was also before Ghouta. And there was a huge debate on getting language in the final document of the review conference condemning Syria for the use of chemical weapons. Part of the text was blocked, and the West had to compromise to get accepted language into that document. In 2018, there was no consensus anymore. Since 2018, we have not had consensus on final documents anymore because of Syria. Now, does Syria go scot-free in that thing? No, absolutely not. But you have to understand a different reality too. When Syria became a party to the Chemical Weapons Convention, the focus of the OPCW was on disarmament. It was to get the chemical weapons as quickly as possible outside of Syria and to get them disarmed. A lot of unusual procedures were adopted there, including removal from the country. The country is normally responsible for its own destruction. What we got into because of that is what I have called hybrid disarmament, part cooperative, part coercive. But Syria, being a party to the convention, became a normal party in a sort of a way and has increasingly insisted on that status, that it has to be treated with all the respect of a party to the Chemical Weapons Convention, which makes the whole coercive aspect very difficult. Still, on the basis of the reports by IIM, you know, the investigation and identification team, IIT team within the OPCW in the summer of 2018, the first reports have come out confirming the use. It was not Khan Sheikhoun, but the villages around Khan Sheikhoun, also in the end of March, beginning of April 2017. These were confirmed then. Syria was taken to account under Article 12 of the Chemical Weapons Convention, which is, so Syria was sanctioned by the OPCW, not by the Security Council, but by the OPCW in a majority vote. And it has lost its political and voting rights as a consequence of that. On the basis of the reports, many countries have placed sanctions on the Syrian regimes, individuals and others. So do not underestimate the impact of that too. And perhaps the most important aspect, and tell me if I'm wrong in my impression, but because of these actions after 2018, to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a single chemical weapons incident anymore since April 2018. And I think that is an unwritten, it's an unspoken consequence, but I think for the people of Syria, it's one of the most important, that there hasn't been any further chemical weapon use anymore. So there is impact. So I would say, yes, certain things do work, but also when we talk about justice, and I would really, I hope the video of this meeting will be available for download and looking. But one of the things that really touched me is the way Amina has addressed the justice concept, not in terms of retribution, what many people have in mind, but in terms of a process of keeping the story alive, keeping the narrative alive, and taking into account the experiences of the people, and trying to get the people involved in the processes that pray. So in other words, justice is a permanent activity that you have to keep up for the present people, for future generations. And that will be necessary. In all the cases we know, after the First World War, we didn't realize, and the realization came with the long-term medical evaluation of the victims of chemical warfare in Iraq. Mustard agent and nerve agents have transgenerational effects. So the people who were exposed, their offspring is also impacted. And if we think, I saw a meeting downstairs about the gendered aspect of the war there. Bear in mind, the genetic defects are in women. With the men in the sperm exits the body regularly. So damaged sperm is away. Women, they have the eggs in their body, for their whole life. And those are damaged. And you have to think of that. And that also takes special attention and special approaches to do that. So thank you, Mina, for that. The responsibility to protect, that happens in so many ways. And when the people at the time of the disarmament in Syria, the evacuation, many people were complaining they weren't doing anything for the victims and so on. And I was telling the people, but prevention is the best way of avoiding future chemical warfare. So taking out the agent in a certain way, in a paradoxical, in a perverse way, the fact that from late 2014, early 2015, the majority of the chemical attacks were chlorine, which is an industrial chemical used in the first attack in Belgium in 1915. If that is 100 years of evolution of chemical technology for warfare, I mean, that we're only talking about that after Ghouta, we haven't seen that many fatalities anymore. One would have expected, because of the level of the attacks, to see many more fatalities. We haven't really seen that. So I do think disarmament was effective, but there are ways of getting around it. I was expecting toxic industrial chemicals to be used on the battlefield, which chlorine is, but I was also expecting things such as, I forget the name now, that is used for fumigation against rats and so on, phosphine, things like that, that I was expecting, but we haven't seen it. So there are silver linings to the story, but it's still unsatisfying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zenders. We don't have any more questions. Okay. Anything else from the panelists? Joanna, Amina, do you want to have a few words? And then we'll go to you, Dr. Zenders. Yes, your final words.
Not actually final words, but something to add. I feel I did not cover this point enough, and you understand, being here, I feel I hold the responsibility to pass as much messages as I can. It's about the fear of the witnesses in Syria, and the regime in Russia waging relentless campaigns of silence to silence the witnesses, and that's something we all know. These witnesses live in constant fear, and that's also we know, but there's nothing that has been done about it. Ongoing intimidation, and not only the witnesses who live in the regime-controlled areas. We're talking about neighboring countries and even European countries with changing policies and becoming hostile with asylum seekers. The threat of deportation and harassments is something that many refugees who are witnesses or outspoken specifically are afraid of. It's something huge and scary. They're playing what these countries that should be providing refuge to these refugees, but instead they're playing into the regime's hands by sending people back into the lion's den, like literally. And in Europe, where we thought that we should be expecting more compassion, shifting asylum policies are creating uncertainty. I have many friends and our survivors are being really paranoid or really overthinking this and really looking over their shoulders. And that's really something important. And the index of impunity for the Syrian regime is not only about achieving this whole big umbrella of justice we've been talking about, it also part of it is actually ending the fear and the suffering of these witnesses when perpetrators are held accountable. And that's why justice is important. It's the power of how we shift the power dynamics for them, and also how we create something. States are responsible, NGOs are responsible to look after witnesses and think about a form of inventing a form of witness protection for these witnesses. The regime is really fighting them. They're fighting their own demons and their own difficulties in dire circumstances, but the fear of being back in Syria is real, and that's something we should keep in mind while working on the advocacy efforts towards justice for the chemical attacks in Syria.
Thank you very much, Amina, for those very thoughtful recommendations. Dr. Sanders, back to you.
Two quick things, if I may. The first one is to the panelists. Would the people be interested in doing with me a roundtable on Zoom on the topics we have discussed here? I have a blog specific on chemical, biological weapon related issues. It's a blog that goes to the experts in the CBW field in the world and has a lot of subscriptions and so on. So we could do a 1 hour, 2 hour session, publish it in 1 or 2 blog postings, but at least give much broader reach to the types of issues that came up. So if you are happy, I will send out a message to see who's interested, and then we can agree on a date to do that. The second thing is, why don't you organize this type of meeting on the eve of a meeting of the Chemical Weapons Convention, the conference of the states parties? I know none of the organizations here at the table will be allowed inside the meeting. There is one side, but there is one state party with whom you have an issue, I suppose, and there are quite a few allies too. But that does not prevent you from doing something on a Sunday in a hotel near the OPCW. Most of the delegates will be in town, and they will be come if this is done. Also, some of you are probably aware of the Chemical Weapons Convention Coalition with Paul Walker. So you can organize it in collaboration with them. And with Paul Walker, you will reach out to many of the states parties and delegates. And you would, the chances are that you would have a big room. And Syria and the others can't do anything because it's not part of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanders. We actually did that in November. And because SNHR, the White Helmets, Beitina, and many other Syrian organizations applied to attend the Conference of State Parties, and we all magically got rejected for unknown reasons. For years. And the White Helmets took the lead, and we actually it organized the first ever Syrian conference on chemical weapons use, and we will continue, hopefully, that trend working in partnership. Jumana, any final words from you?
يعني يمكن اليوم المنظور الجندري اللي عم بيكون بكل شو المناصرة، العمل على الكثير من القضايا. أنا بشوف إنه هذا كثير تقدم مهم ونقطة كثير مهمة. اليوم المناصرة عم بتكون تاخذ بعين الاعتبار التبعات والأضرار على النساء تحديداً، على كمان الأطفال، على المجتمع ككل. وأنا بعتقد هاي كمان يعني جاء نتيجة احتياجات وغاب لأنه ببداية العمل على كل مسار العدالة كان تقريبا غايب شوي. كان هذا النظرة أكثر ميالة خلينا نقول الذكورية أكثر. وأنا بشوف كمان هذا نقلة منيحة من المجتمع المدني السوري وبتمنى يستمر. خلينا بس نكون رغم كل المآسي إنه نكون كمان إيجابيين شوي. إنه نحن بعتقد على هذا الصعيد اليوم نحن بمكان حققنا فيه بمكان مهم نقدر ننطلق منه لنضل خلينا محكومين بالأمل مثل ما قال حبيبي، وعم نسعى مع بعض. طول ما نحن مع بعض أكيد الفرص أكثر بكثير للعدالة.
شكرا جزيلا جمانة. Thank you very much. Thank you Alice. Thank you Farouk. Thank you Jumana. Thank you Amina. Thank you Jean-Pascal. Thank you for the Beitina, SLDP and the White Helmets teams that are behind the scenes that have been, facilitating at least the online part of that conversation. And last but not least, thank you very much to the interpreters that have been with us since morning. And also thank you very much for your participation and the hope that we're all contributing to this bridging the gap on accountability, and in the hope that my Ukrainian friends would not have to do such panels, and in the hope that my Palestinian sisters and brothers would not have to do such a panel in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
شكرا لكم.